Hello, Cathar Love 47. Ancient Gnosticism versus present day Gnosticism. I've read much of ancient Gnostic texts, people's point of view on those particular texts, arguments about where Gnosticism started. For instance, was it a Jewish heresy, a breakaway from Jewish traditions? This is before Christianity, and then it arrived into the Christian tradition. Others state there was no Gnosticism before Christianity. Other scholars again think that it emanated from the Greek mystery religions. And then we have the situation where we have Gnostics who have leanings towards Christianity, and we have Christians who have leanings towards Gnostic philosophy. Quite apart from that the early Gnostics, apart from possibly one group, didn't regard themselves as Gnostics. The very term Gnosticism didn't arrive until the 17th century. In the Gnostic Nag Hammadi Bible, there is neither the word or term for Gnosis or Gnosticism. So it's easy to find oneself lost, puzzled, bemused with ancient Gnosticism. Now that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't read those texts, because they're certainly insightful, and it shows that people were in those days, in those times, were trying to work out their liberation or salvation. And we had the question of pain, the question of materialism, of spirituality, all these things. And people, possibly in those days, took their belief systems, philosophies and religions far more seriously than we did today. In fact, some schools of philosophic thought, if you divulged any of the secrets, the penalty was death. So they didn't muck around with their philosophies. The thing is, it's certainly wide, varied and deep. Gnosticism developed, it waxed, it waned, it moved into different areas, until eventually it returned to Europe, and it culminated in that group which we know as the Cathars. But by this time, certainly a lot of their beliefs and philosophies had firmed, and obviously Gnosticism, because of its very nature, is a system that is looking for truth and reality. Where do we come from? Where are we now? And where are we heading? It believes in knowledge being the key, enlightenment, if you wish, or knowledge in order to become enlightened. And with that knowledge, the person comes to the understanding that he or she has received Gnosis. Do they tap you on the shoulder? You're now a Gnostic, or you've received Gnosis. Well, they didn't do it for me. But certainly they're not going to send you a parchment or write you a letter. But what does happen is that mystical things, magical things will happen in your life. Miracles. Now, they might not be major miracles, but they're certainly miracles nonetheless. Minor miracles. And these are signposts. This is to tell you, yes, you made the right decision. Yes, you're on your way. This journey. There are basic differences between certainly the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Judaism and Islam and Gnosticism. Well, Gnosticism is pretty dangerous to them because with Gnosticism, from the point of creation, with reincarnation, you've got the gift of immortality for eternity. Your spirituality, your mysticality is between you and the divine. You do not need a guru, a priest, a rabbi, a sheikh, a mullah, or anyone to be there to intercede for you. It's between you and that divinity. The other, what they consider dangerous, certainly the Gnostic doesn't, is ultimately the Gnostic or the Cathar realizes there's nothing to, in the end, there's nothing to worry about. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is certainly not death, because death, I assure you, the actual moment of death, as a friend of mine who told me through this medium, and we had this live discussion, he said, it was euphoric. He said, I exited through my head, and he said, I would have liked to have done it again. When people are actually dying, so many smile that they're not grimacing in pain. Now, that's death, the actual event of death. Up to that, there can be pain, there can be absence of quality of life, all these things. That's not very nice. But even as regards pain, every living person can only take so much pain before they become unconscious. What we do get caught up in with death is that a boatload of 300 people drown, or there was 200 Cathars or 400 Cathars burnt by the church. Okay. But over here there's one Cathar burnt by the church, or one person drowns or gets knocked down by a car. What we tend to do is we tend to make death into an abstraction, because each person can only die once in this lifetime and can only experience that much discomfort or pain before they actually die. If 300 happen to die at the same time, that pain is not multiplied by 300 times. Each person is still only getting his dosage of discomfort or pain. That's it. But we tend to say, oh, 300 or 500 or 1,000 died, therefore we multiply it. We make it into an abstraction and say, isn't that terrible? But in actual fact, people are dying every day, and it doesn't hit the newspapers. It's only when there's a lot of people die. So we tend to make this into an abstraction and take it out of all emotional proportions. From the Gnostic, Cathar, we die, we return to our family, world of spirit, before we are recycled again in a new body, male or female, straight or gay, black, white, brown or brindle, whatever it happens to be. But the point about it is, which a modern day Gnostic believes, is that you have choice in this. So, this is Gnosticism. But modern day Gnosticism, I had to go to up the north coast, just up north of Sydney, and I went to the small town of Woy Woy. Very pleasant place. And I was walking through the town, and I didn't know it very well, didn't know it at all in fact, and I only had about 5 or 10 minutes before I had to catch the train back to Sydney. And there I saw this Gnostic shop selling hemp garments, environmental things. There was a Gnostic coffee lounge. There was about 5 shops selling all forms of what we could call New Age types of food, incense, books, CDs, you name it. There was this little group of probably about 5 different shops now, and each prefaced the name of their business with Gnostic. They have their own magazine, and there's psychics and spirituality and readings and all these various things. Living well environmentally, living a sustainable lifestyle, a small carbon footprint, all these things. Now, some people call this New Age, others will call it Gnosticism. The point about it is, they're just words. But from a Gnostic point of view, a Gnostic is up there with the latest information. They're not caught up in ancient religious truths and dogmas and what may have happened and what may not have happened and who agreed and who disagreed and all this. They're up in this present day. They want to save the world today. They're trying to look after the environment today. They're looking after their own spirituality today. They're looking for their own, to increase their mystical journey today. This is what it's about. But the way they do it and the way I do it might be totally different from what she does, the way she does it. It doesn't matter. The point is, each person in their own way is finding out their own true identity, who they really are for themselves. Now, whether that's correct or correct, it doesn't really matter. And sometimes even when we're doing the right thing, it doesn't always work out. Like this gentleman, and he was a nice guy, and he was in the supermarket, and he had to come back to this aisle that he'd been in previously, which he'd forgotten something. Anyhow, he happened to notice on the floor there was this trail of sugar crystals that spilled on the floor. So I thought, oh, I'll follow it and go and tell the person, tap him on the shoulder, he or she, and say, hey, your bag of sugar is broken. It's going all over the floor. So he travelled along, and he went down, and he went around, and eventually he came back. He did. He actually came back full circle, and he looked, and suddenly the penny dropped. He looked under his trolley. It was his bag of sugar that was trickling down all the time. So we can read a few things into that. The point is, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. The thing was, he was trying to do the right thing, but in actual fact, he was the one doing the wrong thing, if you want to call it that. But the point is, it doesn't matter. The point is, he was out to try and rectify that situation. He was out. So the wonderful thing about Gnosticism is, okay, that's okay. We go down that path, that path, and we go as far as we can, or we find, oh, well, that's not exactly what we want. That looks better over there. We head over there. That's no rules. Every rule is man-made. In nature, there's no rules. If you go into a forest, where's the rules? The birds are tweeting. The branches are rustling. The stream or the brook, it's gurgling away. Where's the rules? You bring 2 people in, and someone's making a rule for that one. So in nature, there's no rules. Nature is just being nature. So it's something worthwhile understanding too. So if, in reality, if Gnostics, Cathars, are really looking to what is today's reality, what is really going on, to try and part the curtain, what we should really be doing is trying to get in contact with some of those aliens that certainly, there's no doubt, are visiting us. And actually, on that subject alone, the more that you go into that, apart from the jokesters and apart from those, I mean, there's just so many people now. The other night I watched this guy, and he was ex-CIA, and he was with President Eisenhower. He was actually instructed by President Eisenhower, him and his boss, to go down to Camp 51, because Camp 51 wouldn't tell Eisenhower what the hell was going on. And Eisenhower said, if you don't tell me what's going on in that camp, I'm sending Army 1 there to take over the camp, and then you'll be telling me what's going on. So Eisenhower, they said, okay, we'll send 2 people down. So Eisenhower sent this gentleman, who's now, he's got a couple of months to live, his kidneys are given out, and the doctor said 2 months is the maximum, and he literally wants to get this off his chest, which actually happened. And he went down with his boss, and they thought they're going to have some interviews, but in actual fact, he watched his boss actually with these people from Camp 51, and there was a grey alien, and his boss was talking to him, and they were just talking, and he described him with those big eyes, small mouth and ears. He had I think this one had 4 fingers with flaps between the fingers. And they got all this information. They saw the spaceships, the one that actually that crashed in Roswell County, and he said it was all crumpled up and smashed up like a crash. But he went over it, and he said that you could pick it up and rock it. He said that even though it looked like made of aluminium, he said it was very light. Probably the whole craft would have only weighed about 150 pounds. Now all this they put down, and they brought back to President Eisenhower, and President Eisenhower said, this we have to keep from the public. And this guy just said, look, he said, I started talking about this 5 years ago. He said, but the big black limo turned up, and the guys in the 2 black suits came up and said, come on, stop talking about that. He said, but now I don't care. He said, I've got 2 months to live. I just want to get this off my chest. So there's other USO Air Force colonels. There's the incidents where when they're firing the rockets from the silos, suddenly they won't operate because the UFOs blocking it, and they know it's UFOs. They know they're there, and this happened in Russia. So there's little doubt that these things are happening, but we don't know to what degree, what extent, and have they really met up with the some of the major governments of the world. This is all being kept from us. But what I'm trying to say is, presuming that there are people from aliens from another space, and I certainly believe there are, what would they think about our ancient Gnosticism, our ancient religions and belief systems? You know, is there Muhammad on another in outer galaxy, and outer galaxy, and was Jesus there, and was Jesus out to see them, or whatever? The point is, they could be 50 million years ahead of us as far as everything is concerned. We don't know. But from a Gnostic point of view, it's no problem. We don't mind. It doesn't make an ounce of difference to a Gnostic's beliefs about the fact that there's an ultimate superior being. Even though it's unknown to us, we're ultimately going to return. We're ultimately learning to perfect ourselves, know ourselves, get there. This is no problem at all. It's in fact, and I feel if there's an alien did arrive and he started looking and discussing these different things, he'd say, well, mate, I've got to go with the Gnostics. He said, the other ones, I think they're just caught up, they're cemented in their beliefs. The Gnostic, we want that information that an alien can give us. We want to know where we came from, where we are now, and where the hell we're heading to. Not how, I shouldn't say how. Where we are heading. On that note, I'll say goodbye.